I found out my wife was cheating, hired her lover at our company, and invited him to our anniversary party. I served my cheating wife at her job, kicked her out of the house, and started dating the wife of the guy she cheated with. My wife and I had been married since we were 25. We're both 38 now. We met back in college, got hitched, and everything seemed perfect. We both graduated, landed solid jobs, and began building a life together. Money was never an issue since we both earned pretty well. She worked for her dad's small business, while I scored a position at a large company. A few years in, my boss left suddenly, and since I was the only one who knew how to run the department, I got a big promotion, better salary, bigger bonuses, top-tier benefits, the whole package. At 28, I was making about 3 times more than my wife. That was also the year we had our first daughter, and 2 years later, our second came along. Because she worked for her dad, my wife had a flexible schedule, which was a huge help. Then, 5 years ago, everything changed. My father-in-law passed away unexpectedly, leaving my wife and her mom in a tough spot. They had to decide whether to sell the company or run it themselves. My mother-in-law had no clue how to manage the business, so my wife stepped up and took over. She ran it just as well as her dad did, which meant a major pay raise. She was now making more than me. I was proud of her. Going from a regular employee to the boss isn't easy. But as our careers took off, our daughters started to feel the strain of barely seeing us. So, my wife and I had a conversation about one of us staying home with the kids. She pointed out that my job was stable, but hers could collapse if she wasn't there to run it. I agreed, so I quit my job and became a full-time stay-at-home dad. I took care of everything, raising the girls, cooking, cleaning, fixing things around the house, running errands, you name it. I even pampered my wife when she got home from work. Things went smoothly for a while, but about a year ago, something changed. My wife, who used to appreciate everything I did, started to act really cold. She'd make sarcastic comments like, "Do you even do anything?" Or, "How about you get a real job?" It hurt because I was working hard every day to make sure she didn't have to lift a finger when she got home. I had a real job once, but I gave it up to take care of the kids, the house, and her. On top of that, she's always been pretty sexual, but out of nowhere, she stopped initiating anything. If I tried, she'd always say she wasn't in the mood. It was weird, but I figured she was just stressed out from the pandemic and everything else going on. I put in more effort to make her happy, but no matter what I did, nothing seemed to work. Last weekend, my oldest had a softball game, so I got everything ready and took her to the field. During the game, I wanted to take a video of my daughters for my mom and dad since they live out of state and don't get to see the kids much. The problem was, I'd forgotten my phone. So, I asked my wife if I could borrow hers. She'd been glued to it all day, and honestly, I thought it might be good for her to put it down for a bit. She handed it to me, saying she was going to grab a drink and a snack. As soon as she left, I started recording the video of my daughter. But while I was filming, a message notification popped up from some app. Out of curiosity, I checked it, and I can't even begin to explain what I saw. My wife was sexting this guy from her work, who's like 8 years younger than her. They were sending pics, videos, and talking about how amazing the sex was. What hit me even harder was reading them talking about me. The guy was mocking me, saying I was a weakling who couldn't even hold down a proper job or take care of my family. My wife agreed with him. I was absolutely crushed, angry and heartbroken all at once. I heard my wife coming back, so I quickly closed the app and acted like I was still recording. On the ride home and even after we got back, she tried to talk to me, but I couldn't even look at her. I was too furious. That night, when we went to bed, she tried to initiate sex for the first time in a while. I told her I wasn't in the mood. She snapped and said, "If you're gonna act like a witch about everything, you can sleep on the couch." So that's exactly what I did. I've been on the couch ever since, not sure what my next move should be. I'm lost. My wife was my whole world, and now it feels like everything's falling apart. I don't know where to begin or how to move forward. Any advice would be greatly appreciated because I'm really struggling here. Edit. I forgot to mention that I took screenshots of the conversation and sent them to my phone, so I do have evidence. Should I confront her right away? Should I tell her exactly what I found and how I feel? A part of me knows I've been more of a man than that guy will ever be. I've sacrificed everything to take care of my family, and maybe it's time to let her be with someone who'll never understand what it means to be a good dad. Date 1. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone for the advice. A few things to clear up. Yes, I still have all the texts, pictures, and videos. Second, I don't have any control over the company we run. It's split 50-50ths between my wife and her mom. And third, I've been sleeping in the guest bedroom since that night and plan to stay there. As for the big decision, I've made up my mind to go through with the divorce. This morning, I reached out to a law firm in a different town to keep things as private as possible. Thankfully, they had a last-minute opening due to a cancellation. So, after dropping my girls off, I drove over to meet with the lawyer. Long story short, he's really good. I showed him everything I had, messages, videos, you name it. He told me that, fortunately, with the evidence I have, the lawyer basically said she's in for a rough time in the divorce. Given that I quit my job to raise our girls while she's rarely home, having an affair, and clearly prioritizing this guy over her family, she doesn't stand much of a chance. He said we'd likely get child support, alimony, and we'll keep the house, which she'll be stuck paying for as long as our daughters live there. He even mentioned that I could potentially get extra money to help pay for my education since I'm no longer considered part of the workforce. Some of you were spot on when you said I shouldn't go back to work right now. The lawyer agreed and told me that if I were working before the divorce is finalized, it could affect a lot of things in the settlement. Then he asked me if I wanted full custody. I told him I'm fine with my wife seeing the girls on weekends here and there, but mostly, I want full custody. Since she had an affair in our marital home, he said I could pretty much push for whatever I want. Bringing another man into the house while the girls were around puts them in danger and makes her look guilty. So, I'll be pushing for full custody, with her getting visitation maybe once or twice a month on weekends. I also made it clear I don't want any men around my daughters, and if there are, she could face serious problems from me. I just don't want that guy or any guy like him anywhere near my kids. The lawyer told me to keep my mouth shut until everything is ready. He's planning to have someone serve her the papers next week, and once that happens, she'll be legally required to leave the house. I asked him why I should stay quiet, and he said, "Trust me, you're upset, but just shut the hell up until everything's in place." He emphasized that I need to act normal, no arguments, no drama, and definitely no sex. I agreed and asked, "Why no sex?" He just repeated, "Trust me. Don't do it and follow my instructions." So now, I'm back home, pretending everything's fine, getting ready for dinner like it's just another normal night. I'll be playing along until she gets served next week. Since I can only update twice here, any further updates will be on my page if anyone cares to follow. Oh, and to the guy who asked for my wife's nudes, just know. Seems like all you have to do is ask her, and she'll send them to you, so it shouldn't be that hard. Quick edit. The lawyer recommended I get an STD test, along with tests for my daughters. When I asked why, he said it's rare that something like this happens only once, implying she might have been unfaithful before. That was a real gut punch, and it terrified me, but I guess that's why you hire lawyers. They keep you grounded and have your back when you're ready to lose it. First off, I want to thank everyone who reached out with kind messages. It's been a tough time, and I've really appreciated the support. Just a heads up, I did speak to my lawyer about these posts. I didn't go into too much detail, but they said as long as I keep things brief and avoid sharing too many specifics, I'm fine to post. So, this update is going to be short and to the point for legal reasons. Let's start with the tests. I got an STD test for myself, and I also had a paternity test done for my girls. The good news is, I'm clear of any diseases, which wasn't really surprising given how little intimacy there's been between us over the past year. But I know what most of you are probably wondering. Am I the biological father of my girls? I'm happy to say that, yes, I am. Even though I would have always been their dad no matter what, getting that confirmation was a huge relief. As for my soon-to-be ex, she's officially out of the house. I've been granted full temporary custody for now. While I can't go into too many specifics just yet, I will say that my lawyer made sure everything was handled properly, and we were able to legally have her removed from the home. It wasn't exactly smooth, but I'll save those details for another time. She was served at work, and from what I've heard, It didn't go well for her. Now, about my girls. My oldest knows that we're separating. She has a friend whose parents split up for the same reason, and she's seen firsthand how that affected her friend. She's been begging me to let mommy come back home, crying and asking me not to let this happen. I've decided to arrange for them to see a child therapist to help them process everything and understand what's going on, following the advice of my lawyer. My youngest doesn't fully understand the situation yet. She just misses her mom and wants her to come home. Hearing that breaks my heart, and I feel like a terrible father sometimes. I wonder if they'll end up hating me for this. There are moments when I think maybe I should just let their mom keep cheating on me if it means keeping the family together and making my girls happy. But deep down, I know I can't do that. I've even had thoughts about suggesting an open relationship, just so we can hold things together until the girls are older, but I know that wouldn't work. The girls would eventually pick up on it, and they wouldn't like the fact that mommy and daddy don't love each other anymore. As for my ex, she's staying with her mom for now. My mother-in-law actually called me recently, asking if we could meet. I agreed, and we've set up a time to talk. She didn't push for details over the phone, just said we'd talk when we meet. But she did beg me not to take her granddaughters away from her. I told her, "You're a great and loving grandmother, and as long as you can keep what's happening between your daughter and me separate from the girls, I don't see any issue with you staying in their lives. I'm not going to take them away from you." She was incredibly thankful, and that was the end of the conversation for now. As for my ex, she's been blowing up my phone with calls and texts, trying to figure things out. Per my lawyer's advice, all communication between us is strictly through a trackable method and only about the girls. Nothing more, nothing less. She should have thought about figuring things out before she started seeing someone else and making me feel like I wasn't enough. Update 3. Hey everyone, just wanted to give a small update on what's been going on. First off, I had Thanksgiving with my soon-to-be mother-in-law. I did it purely for the sake of my girls, and of course, I cleared it with my lawyer first to make sure it wouldn't cross any lines or look like we were reconciling. Before Thanksgiving, I met with my mother-in-law to talk about how we're going to handle things with the girls. It was a pretty straightforward conversation, just making sure the kids were the priority. During that chat, though, she opened up about some things related to my ex. Apparently, my soon-to-be ex was cheated on by her high school boyfriend. Funny enough, I never even knew she dated anyone seriously back then. According to her mom, this guy was from one of those families, and she had warned her daughter to stay away from him. Turns out, my ex caught the guy one night with his head under another girl's skirt, doing things you can probably imagine. My mother-in-law couldn't believe her daughter would end up in a situation like this now, given what she went through back then. She also mentioned my ex had a couple of boyfriends before me in college, but she never thought any of those relationships would last. She told me that when she met me, she felt like she'd found her son-in-law, and she apologized deeply for her daughter's actions. She also promised she'd make sure my ex doesn't do anything problematic during the divorce. A few days before Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law invited me over for dinner with the girls. I asked, "Is she going to be there?" She said yes, and I told her I couldn't come if my ex was there. She understood but then asked if we could just try to put on a united front for the girls, just for the holiday. She even said, "Look, I know you have a lawyer. Ask them. If they say it's a bad idea, I get it." So I did. My lawyer advised me to tell my wife via the app that Thanksgiving dinner was purely for the girls, to avoid any confusion. So I did. She had already reached out earlier, begging to see me and the kids, and of course the girls were also asking to see their mom. I swallowed my pride for their sake and we went. It was awkward right from the start. My soon-to-be ex gave our daughters a hug, which was fine, but then she tried to hug and kiss me. I dodged it and instead, I went to hug my mother-in-law. The whole time, my ex was trying to act like we were still a married couple, making small talk with me. I kept my answers to simple yes and no's, and focused on helping my mother-in-law finish preparing dinner and cleaning up. Before dinner, my religious mother-in-law wanted to say a prayer. I'm an atheist, but out of respect for her, I went along with it. My ex sat next to me, and I held my daughter's hand, but when my wife tried to grab mine, I pulled away. I know it may seem petty, but I just can't stand the thought of her touching me anymore. Dinner itself was fine, But my ex kept trying to talk as if nothing had happened, like we were still a happy family. She even started mentioning Christmas plans and vacations she wanted us to take together. At that point, I knew coming over had been a mistake. We finished eating and I helped clean up. My daughters wanted to watch a movie with their mom, one we used to watch together as a family. I agreed, but when my ex tried to cuddle up next to me on the couch, I moved to a chair. The tension was thick, and my mother-in-law was clearly upset with her daughter the whole night. You could see it in the way she looked at her. When the movie ended, it was time to leave. My girls had fallen asleep, so I carried them to the car. I went back inside to grab something, and that's when my ex grabbed me, tears streaming down her face, begging to work things out, saying she wanted to be a family again and was sorry for what she'd done. Before I could even respond, my mother-in-law stormed in, grabbed my ex by the hair, I'm not joking, yanked her back, and told me good night. She then started yelling at her daughter as I left. So, yeah, I told my lawyer everything, and he reassured me that nothing I did indicated reconciliation. I had made my stance clear in the messages, so legally, I'm in the clear. My ex is still calling and begging to work on things, but I'm leaving her on read. The only thing we'll talk about is the girls. Now, I'm sure my ex is going to want to do the same thing for Christmas, but I'm not sure if I can handle it, or if it's even a good idea. Once again, I'll have to talk it over with my lawyer. It's not petty at all. How could anyone want to be touched by someone who's done something so disgusting and betrayed them so deeply? She's delusional if she thinks this is going to play out differently. She's lost her mind. Good for you for standing your ground. She's garbage. Things have taken a really bad turn for my girls. They had 2 therapy sessions this week, and while the first one seemed to go well, with them coming out a lot calmer and at peace, the second session went off the rails. I talked to the therapist after the first session, and she seemed to really understand my girls. But the second session was a complete disaster. The therapist told me, in age-appropriate terms, that she explained to the girls why their mom and I are separating, that their mom had an affair and betrayed me. I knew at some point this would come up, but I didn't expect it to happen this soon. When I went to pick them up, it was like a flood of emotions. My girls burst into tears, clinging to me, hugging me and crying, saying how much they love me. Of course, I'm grateful they love me, but this was not how I wanted things to go for them. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. I asked the therapist why she told them so soon, and she said the girls had already sensed something was wrong. They noticed how cold and distant I've been with their mother. She said, "Your girls aren't stupid. They know something's off between you two. They wanted to know why you're separating, and I tried to avoid it, but they won't make progress in therapy if they don't know the truth." She didn't go into explicit details with them, but now they understand the age-appropriate version of their mom being unfaithful. I think my oldest might be able to handle this and eventually come to terms with it, but I'm really worried about my youngest. When we got home, they wouldn't let go of me. They cried all night. So, I ordered some food and put on their favorite movies in my bedroom. We stayed there together until they finally fell asleep. Once they were out, I went to the bathroom and just broke down. I cried. My soon-to-be ex has no idea of the damage she's causing our girls. She's completely oblivious to the pain they're going through. I don't know how I'm going to navigate this. The therapist suggested we could try medication for a while, just to help the girls cope until they adjust to the new normal. I refused. I don't want to medicate my daughters. The therapist understood and said it was just an option. She can't prescribe anything herself, but said a primary care doctor would likely diagnose them with something to justify the medication. I'd rather help my girls process their emotions in a healthy way, without resorting to drugs. And as far as Christmas goes, I guess I won't have to worry about them wanting to be with their mom. How do I know? My oldest straight up said she never wants to see her mom again. My youngest, of course, tends to follow her big sister's lead, but I think she might feel the same way deep down. I was shocked when I heard it. I told them, "You don't hate your mom. You might be really angry right now, but you don't hate her. She still loves you." I told my girls, "Your mom still cares about you." But my oldest just shook her head and said, "No, she doesn't," before crying into my arms until she fell asleep. My youngest followed suit, and that's how the night ended. So this is my life now. I know it's best they know the truth and come to their own conclusions. I don't want to be like their mother, hiding things from them. It's a tough truth, but it's still the truth. Update 5. Hey everyone, sorry for the title. Sounds like a bad sequel, I know, but I wanted to be clear about what this update is about. First, just to clear things up quickly, the girls are doing better. They're still seeing the same therapist, but they're starting to come to terms with things. My daughters don't say they hate their mother anymore, but they've made it clear they don't want to see her for a long time. Those are their words, not mine. We'll see how that goes. My wife has been informed that the girls know the truth, and she tried calling them. They answered, but since then, she's been more respectful of the boundaries I've set for myself and the girls. I think she's finally starting to realize the damage she's done. Now, on to the affair partner. I knew he was a piece of crap, but wow, this guy is something else. Someone here had asked if there was another betrayed spouse in the mix, and honestly, I hadn't thought about it. So I did some digging. I found a list of employee contact information from my wife's work, including emergency contacts. Turns out the guy is married and he has a toddler. I called his wife and at first she didn't believe me. She hung up on me. But a little while later, she called me back and asked to meet in person. I agreed, and when we met, I showed her all the proof. She asked if we could sit in my car, so we did. As soon as the door closed, she broke down in tears, sobbing, "How could he do this to me? What did I do wrong?" I tried to comfort her, telling her she did nothing wrong, and I even gave her my lawyer's contact information. Then she asked how long it had been going on. I told her I thought it had been about a year, maybe a little longer. That's when her sadness turned into pure rage. She reached up, ripped off her hair. It was a wig, and told me she had just beaten cancer. She explained that after their child was born, doctors had found something off while she was in the hospital. Turned out to be a tumor. Over the last year and a half, she'd undergone 2 surgeries, chemotherapy, and a lot of medication. Honestly, she looked great, so I was shocked to hear what she'd been through. She told me she's in remission now, but over the past 2 years, she hadn't been able to have sex. Between the pregnancy and the cancer treatments, it was just impossible. She shared how the cancer had taken such a toll on her body and self-esteem. She said she started gaining weight from the meds, lost all her hair, and felt horrible about herself. And while she was going through all that, her husband was cheating on her. She told me she didn't feel as pretty as she used to. She had just gotten to a point where she felt like she could have sex again, and was planning to surprise her husband soon for being a caring, loving husband. Well, that's clearly off the table now. She broke down again, this time crying about how her child would grow up in a broken home. I tried to comfort her, but then she suddenly tried to initiate something with me. I gently turned her down, saying, "You're not in the right state of mind, and this isn't healthy." She thanked me for being honest, then asked for the evidence I had. I gave it to her and she went home. Since then, we've texted a few times. We're both in the same boat as betrayed spouses, so we'll probably keep in touch. Big thanks to those who suggested reaching out to the other betrayed spouse. I hadn't even thought about it. This guy is a total monster, and honestly, my ex and him are a perfect match. Misery loves company, right? Update 6. Hey everyone. I've been getting a lot of questions about whether I spent Christmas with the other betrayed spouse. The answer is yes, I did. And honestly, it was a really nice day. All things considered, it was wonderful. I laid out the girls' presents from Santa early in the morning, before the sun came up. This is probably the last year my oldest will believe in Santa, so I wanted to make it special. Sure enough, within about 15 minutes of me setting everything up, the girls woke up, excitedly saying, "Santa came!" I dragged my tired self out of bed, and they tore into their presents. They were thrilled with everything. Afterwards, we put on a movie, and the girls snuggled up next to me. They both fell asleep pretty quickly. Once they were out, I got up, made some coffee, and just enjoyed the quiet for a moment. My youngest woke up and said, "I'm hungry, Daddy." So I put an apron on her and let her help me make breakfast. My oldest eventually joined us, and we all sat down to eat together. Watching them play with their new toys, laughing and having fun, it was exactly what I needed. It made me really happy. Later in the day, I had to get them ready to go see their mother and grandmother. Normally, I'm more strict about them being on time, but with everything going on, I've been more lenient. The girls got ready, but they kept saying they didn't want to go see their mom. I told them, "Your mom loves you," even though I know they're struggling with that right now. My therapist has been clear that I need to encourage their relationship with their mother for their emotional growth. Plus, if I don't, my wife could try to claim I'm isolating the girls from her in court. The therapist said the girls can make their own decision about their relationship with their mom when they're older. But for now, I need to make sure they have the opportunity to see her. My wife knows about the therapist and they've talked. The therapist pretty much told her, "You betrayed your husband, and it's obvious he's the girl's favorite. You're going to have to show them a lot before they'll trust and love you again." As we were leaving, I reminded the girls, "Don't punish Grandma for your mother's mistakes. She loves you too." The girls agreed to go spend time with Grandma, and it was a smooth handoff. When we got to my mother-in-law's, I gave her a call, and she came out to grab the girls' things. They were going to stay the night for Christmas. My mother-in-law had asked earlier if they could, and I checked with my lawyer. He said it was fine, as long as it wasn't for days on end or something I did regularly. I made sure to tell the girls, "If you want to come home at any time, just call me, and I'll come pick you up." As I was leaving, my soon-to-be ex walked outside. I don't know what she said to her mom, but whatever it was, my mother-in-law gave her a confused look and then a firm, stern face, like she was saying no. My ex glanced at me with tears in her eyes and waved. I didn't wave back, I just drove off. I had left food warming in the oven, waiting for the other betrayed spouse to show up. When she did, she wasn't with her toddler. I asked where the little one was, and she explained that her in-laws wanted to spend Christmas with the child, as did their father. She ran the whole situation by her lawyer just like I did, and it was all cleared. She looked stunning. She was in a nice dress, leggings, fluffy boots, and a beautiful wig. We sat down for dinner and talked about her past, just getting to know each other better. After dinner, we moved to the couch and put on a movie. We kept chatting, covering a range of topics, from our past experiences to our current situations. Eventually, I brought out a bottle of wine. I don't drink often, but I like to have a specific wine on Christmas. She asked if she could have some, and I made sure she was okay to drink. She said yes, so I poured her a glass. As we drank, the conversation shifted. We went from discussing our pasts to our interests, and then, after a couple of glasses, we started talking about our current issues, crying one moment, joking the next. Before we knew it, 2 bottles were gone, which is rare for me. The conversation turned more playful, even sexual. We ended up talking about kinks, what we like, and what we're looking for in relationships. We quickly realized that we were pretty similar in those aspects. At one point, she said, "Your wife was lucky, and she messed it all up." I replied, "So did your husband. Some of you had suggested that I should affirm her the last time she tried to come on to me, maybe tell her she was beautiful. I hadn't done that before, but this time I did. I told her she was beautiful, and she thanked me. I even said, 'You can take off the wig if you don't want to wear it. You look amazing without it. Honestly, you're stunning with the pixie cut.'" She teared up and thanked me, genuinely moved. We kept talking, and eventually we ended up cuddling while watching the movie. One thing led to another, and before long we were in my bedroom where we made love. It was slow, intimate, and full of emotion. Lots of kissing and holding each other. Afterward, we just laid there, cuddling, and both of us shed a few tears. Eventually, we fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, we woke up, had breakfast together, and took turns getting showered. As she was leaving, she asked, "Did you plan on this?" She laughed and added, "A girl always has an extra pair of clothes." Before heading out, she stopped and asked me, "Did you feel anything last night?" I decided to be honest and said, "Yeah, I did, but we need to make sure we're focused on ourselves and our kids first, and make sure these feelings aren't just a reaction to everything we've been through." She agreed and said, "We'll explore that later." Then she gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, thanked me for a great night, and said, "I'll text you later." After that, I went to pick up my girls. They actually said they had a good time and mentioned that their mom was on her best behavior, for the most part. So, yeah, Now I'm back home, just finished prepping dinner, and plan on spending the evening with my girls. Thank you, everyone. These Reddit posts have been like therapy for me. I think that moment with the other betrayed spouse was really good for you, OP. It sounds like you both needed that intimacy, someone to connect with after everything you've been through. I'm really sorry for what's happened to you and your girls, but honestly, it feels like this is heading in a healthy and positive direction. All the best to you, OP. What do you all make of this? Would you have started dating the affair partner's wife? Do you think it's crossing a line? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.